Welcome everybody to the Don't Sink podcast. Today I have Christopher Ellingsworth. Today he's going to be explaining a little bit about um, the exploitation of underprivileged and underserved communities, also environmental destruction that goes on around the world. And he also is going to speak a little bit on the foundation of the new world, which I'm going to give him a chance to explain. So, uh, first things first, though, Chris, where'd you grow up?
Everywhere and nowhere, I think, is the
Yeah,
best answer. I moved around quite a lot. I think my life I've lived in 16 states, I think,
nice.
something like that. Yeah, I went to 6 different high schools, 2 middle
Wow.
schools, 2 elementary schools. So
Yeah.
yeah, the 90s. I went to a lot of different schools in the 90s, almost one per year.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so where I grew up, the Eastern Seaboard, Texas, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii. That would be like pretty much where I grew up.
Nice. Yeah, I got some family that used to live in Honolulu. Hawaii is a beautiful place. I've been there once, but I was too young to remember, so I don't
Uh,
really know much about it.
yeah, I lived on the other side of Hawaii in Waikiki. Nice
Nice.
area and whatnot. But even then, it was expensive. And I'm sure now it's about 8 times more expensive than it was in the mid 90s.
Yeah, one thing I do know about Hawaii is that it's some of the poorest communities in the nation, and it not being on the mainland, we don't really get too much of a look into it as much as we should. We don't pay it very much attention.
Oh yeah. It's kind of what I'm here to talk about. Not specifically Hawaii, but across the board.
Yeah,
Really with everyone everywhere, regardless of where you think you are. The things that I'll speak to you about, they affect you. they
yeah,
they affect our world at a global scale, and they're not being talked about. They're problems that people are not looking for solutions to, and I'm here
yeah.
to explain to you what the problems are, and of course the solution to it.
That being said, what are some of the problems that we find ourselves too busy to pay attention to on a day-to-day basis?
um all right, it's our economic system.
Hmm.
That is really the big problem here that I want to talk about, and it's by design. It really doesn't serve our best interests, and I'll kind of go into two different fronts on that.
Hmm.
Um, One with the environment, and one with people in general and how they're exploited very
Yeah,
easily. Um, let's say with the environmental issue, you have a two-headed snake when it comes to this, and this is from the perspective of, let's say you right now, you became president of the United States of America.
okay.
Um, you have two problems that you have to deal with, and that is you want to maintain a high rate of jobs for people, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to be the president that has to say, "Oh, we have like 20% unemployment rate," right?
Yeah,
You
right.
want to keep the amount of jobs available, and you also want to keep your GDP high. If you're
Yeah.
familiar with GDP, it's gross domestic production, right,
Hmm.
or gross domestic product for a nation. And the most basic aspect of it is that it has to increase every year by at least 2% to show that you have a healthy, thriving economy. Now,
Hmm.
there's an issue there. If you produce something better, lasting longer, more effective, well, you don't sell as many of them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, like I said, you're the president, you can be king of this nation. It doesn't matter. You don't even have to answer to anyone. You don't have to go through Congress or nothing. You're just king. But you still have a problem of, that these companies are producing whatever to fail. It could
Right.
be something as simple as spoons and can openers and silverware and whatever, to as complicated as computers and cell phones or cars, whatever. They're producing these things to fail intentionally as soon as
Hmm.
possible, right? Environmentally speaking, the more often you produce it, the more often you're, consuming resources and production. You're destroying the planet at every step of the process. You're, having to harvest raw materials and so on and so forth. You're
Yeah.
packaging, the byproducts, the shipping, everything, and eventually just throwing the product away.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is if you try to do something to encourage those businesses or to prohibit those businesses from, let's say, making batteries that only last a third of the life of what they potentially could. Something,
Hmm.
just anything, any of those things that would actually make products better.
Hmm.
If you did something about it, well, you're going to hurt your GDP in the end,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So you as a president, a king, whatever, it wouldn't matter. You have that conflict of interest. So with that conflict of interest being said, you are not going to be motivated to try to encourage companies to do better. If anything, you're motivated to encourage them to do worse.
Precisely, yeah.
Right? It's a gigantic conflict of interest. It's at a global level, right? Because globally, they use GDP as a metric to measure our currency's value. Now, the other end of the snake, the other head of the snake with that would be the job dependency issue. Me,
Right.
you, and most everyone else, say 90, 95% of the world, 99%, whatever, most of us are job dependent, which means we need a job until we either retire, if we're lucky enough, or we
Yeah.
die. So in order to keep those jobs, again, you have the exact same conflict of interest. If you make products that are better, last longer, or more effective, you're hurting your jobs, your country's jobs. You're actually, if you produce cell phones that last twice as long, you only need to produce half as many cell phones, you're going to lose jobs, right?
Right.
So you have that major conflict of interest in doing that. Same thing, you're not motivated as the leader of your society to govern in a way that would actually benefit society. You're actually motivated in a way that would harm society to keep your GDP afloat. Another example of this is just the cost of those goods. A lot of people like to argue, oh, well, GDP wise, you can simply, if you sell a better product, you can simply raise the price. Let's say it lasts twice as long. Well, you raise the price, it helps your GDP. Yeah, it helps your GDP.
Yeah.
That's exactly the problem. Is the cost of housing is skyrocketing. That helps GDP.
Yeah.
It does. It helps your GDP. The cost of healthcare is outrageous. It helps your GDP.
Yeah.
So if you're king of your country, if you have to answer to no one, you still are not going to be motivated to lower the cost of healthcare, housing, education, whatever. You're not motivated to take any action against it. Like I said, there's that GDP head of the snake, and then there's the job dependency head of the snake. And when it comes to the environment, well, like I said, environmentally speaking, GDP wise, you need to produce more, which means consume more and destroy more of the planet. Job dependency wise, well, if you are a logger, but you need your job,
Yeah.
you are not going to be motivated to actually do anything to, stop logging, like stop destroying the rainforest because, we need the Amazon to breathe. We need that to breathe. You're not
Right.
going to be motivated to stop because you need your job. So it's just this huge conflict of interest on that side. The other side would be, the exploitation in general, as far as how easy it is to impoverish people.
Yeah.
Right. How easy it is for salesmen or just the big companies in general to take advantage of the little guy, which, has been happening for as long as we know. You have to look at a couple different issues. It really starts with our currency and the way it's set up, the way that we perceive it.
Yeah.
And here, I got an example here. $1.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we perceive it. What is it worth? How does that affect you? How easily are you impoverished? Well, sorry, brain fart. It comes down to how much you're paid and how much you're charged for a product.
Right.
Right. That comes down. That's what it's going to boil down to, as far as your quality of living, whether or not you can live a good life or you live scraping by paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
With the dollar, you have an economic system that, at its core, it doesn't really seem to have a true measure of value. Instead, it's more arbitrary. Like how many dollars do you need to make per hour of work in order for you to get by, or is your job worth how many dollars per hour? Well, the biggest starting metric when it comes to that is cost of living. And cost of living is another way of saying paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
A paycheck to paycheck lifestyle is cost of living. So you are starting your pay, and I don't care what your skills are, what kind of job you're going to take. You're starting your pay based off of how much you need to get by, where you are in the world. If you're in New York, or if you're in Alabama, or if you're in Mexico or China, your pay rate's going to change based off of those places. So it's a pay rate, like I said, it starts with how much you need. just to get by another day, another week, so on and so forth. The other end of that problem would be how much you're charged. And right now, the way it is and the way it has been is just as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
As much as they can convince you to pay.
Right.
Excuse me for a second.
There you go.
But how much you charge, it's about how much you can get away with charging someone. How much you can get away with the customer paying you. And that's historically been as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
So with that, there's really no true measure of value. You kind of lose that measure of value, and you get this perceived value, like whatever object you typically see it being sold for X amount of dollars,
Right.
right? You see it, slightly less than X, and you're like, oh well, now it's a good deal, right? Or slightly more than X, oh now it's a bad deal, because that's just what you're used to seeing this being sold at. It's kind of an established value that you have, but the true value you really have no idea. That's a really important thing when it comes to let's say housing.
Yeah.
Right now, the way it is market value. Market value is how you value a house. Well, what does that mean? If people sell them for more, suddenly they're worth more, right?
Right.
If you get 5 or 10 people in a neighborhood who buy a house at stupid prices, right? They did no research, they did no arguing, they did no haggling, they just bought it. They bought it for way more than it's worth.
Right.
Well, now suddenly every other house in that neighborhood is worth more. That's how the market value aspect of that works. And that really just leads to it going up and up and up and up. There's no real true starting value. So we easily get exploited on that end. So, and I know I didn't really properly introduce myself earlier, but I'm Christopher Ellingsworth. I'm the founder of the nonprofit, the Foundation of a New World.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of this nonprofit is to actually build a small scale city for those in need, and a system that can eliminate poverty, curb greed, value life, promote freedom, liberty, and independence, and protect the earth simultaneously. Yeah. Now, the way that I plan to pull it off, now, like I said, this is what we have. It's $1.
Mm-hmm.
I plan to make a currency like this. Mm-hmm. What this is an hour. So, like I said, with $1, what is $1 worth? It's constantly changing. It's always inflating. It's very arbitrary. You end up with a pay based off of what you need to get by. With this, and I know it's kind of hard to read here. I made a larger one or a better example. No, it's kind of far away from the screen here. But with this, what are you paid based off of? An hour. Right. More or less based off your skill set, what kind of job you're doing, and so on. But you have a truer starting point.
Yeah.
One that shouldn't be inflating over the years. Right. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of changing that aspect of it. And the purpose of this, let's just say, as far as, like I said, the problems with exploitation, they really start with how much you're paid and how much you're charged. Like I said, you have a truer starting point with the hour that your starting pay is based off an hour. You do have some other rules in here. Anyway, the other side of it, how much you're charged, that's what the system of, 8 rules comes in.
Okay.
And it's basically to establish that the actual cost before profit has to be listed next to the price. Mm-hmm. Right? So rule 1 is that a person shall not be paid less than half an hour per hour worked. Right? It's minimum wage. Yeah. Common, typical, nothing we haven't seen before, nothing we're not dealing with right now.
Right.
The second one is that a person's pay of more than 3 hours per hour is considered part of a company's profit.
Yeah.
Right? So you can pay yourself whatever you want. You can say, I want to make 10 hours an hour, 100 hours an hour, and I'm going to charge that to people. You can do that.
Yeah.
But you have to show that as profit, which not everyone's going to be happy with, especially if you're going to the doctor and they say, oh, it's going to cost, however much money.
Right.
With this, there's a thing that you're going to see, and that's where rule 3 comes in. The cost of a product or service before accumulated profit, all profits from raw materials to finished product, shall be listed next to the price. Now, what that does is, like I said, when you go to the doctor, With this system, this economic system, the rules would state that that doctor, when they give you a price or their invoice, their bill, whatever, they have to show the before profit price of your service next to the actual price they're charging. So as much as they like to feed us stories of, oh, well, medical care is so expensive because of R&D, medical care is so expensive because of the people who don't pay, medical care
Yeah.
is so expensive because of this and so expensive because of that, and it's so expensive. They're giving you a lot of BS. They go home to their Bentleys,
Mm-hmm.
they go home to their mansions, they go home to their yachts. I'm not
Yes.
saying every doctor's like this, but you're going to tell me that there's nobody working in the medical field that's doing that, or the
Yeah, for
people who
sure.
own the medical field are not doing that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the medical field doing that. So, like I said, with this system, you would actually see that. You would see that true cost before their profit margins kick in
Mm.
of their service. And like right now, as it has been in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of people, doing marches and voting for politicians based on if they will provide free healthcare for the people, right? Government paid healthcare,
Yeah.
right? Well, they're not really lowering the cost of healthcare; they're just putting in our taxes. So they're not
Mm.
really solving any of the problems. They're not lowering
Yeah.
the cost. They're not addressing the fact that they're just charging too much money to begin with. It doesn't
Right.
address the fact at all. With this system, it comes up immediately.
Right.
Immediately. You don't have to do research. If you do have to do research and find out that they're not telling the truth, well, that's fraud,
Right.
right? So with this system, immediately, right off the bat, you can see the problem. And the problem is that they're charging way too much money. They want to make a huge profit. They're telling you need the surgery, you're going to die. And I'm sorry that it's really expensive, but I want a Bentley. That's
Yeah.
what they would have to tell you, as opposed to this system or as opposed to our established system, the current system that we have, where they just tell you, oh, it's really expensive, and I'm sorry, it's just medical care is expensive nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
because of expenses,
Yeah.
right? Excuses.
Yeah. So, like, basically, your system is basically getting rid of arbitrage altogether. You know, basically getting rid of and showing the transparency that we need as a consumer. Because, I mean, like you said, the value of a dollar is in flux. It goes up. It's never stagnant, and so that allows companies and corporations to upcharge and to basically give you this abstract price that doesn't really have any justification behind it. And not only is that, I see that in healthcare. You see it in fashion. You see it in pretty much every single commodity you can think of, and I can see how a lot of corporations and a lot of companies would be hesitant to show people what their profit margins really are in their products.
Because it's easier to sell something at a high price if people don't know it really doesn't cost that much. We
Yeah.
have so many ideas in our head. Like, we have this idea that, let's just say, a light bulb. There's a history behind the light bulb where the companies literally got together and decided that they were going to make sure that they didn't make light bulbs that didn't last too long. They got
Yeah.
together and decided we will find companies that make light bulbs that last longer than however many hours.
Hmm.
So people have this idea that if it is a better product, it should cost more money. Well,
Hmm.
the fact that they were doing that back in this is back in, I think, 1920s, 1930s. This example with the light bulb,
Hmm.
the fact that they were doing that showed that they weren't. It wasn't a matter of how much money it cost to produce that light bulb. They wanted to make sure it failed.
Yeah.
They paid engineers to make sure it failed. Instead of
Wow.
engineering things to be better, they engineered them to be worse. So it didn't save them money
Hmm.
to produce this cheaper product. It even cost them money.
Yeah.
See, we have this idea that, oh, well, this one lasts twice as long, so it's justifiable that we pay twice as much for it, right?
Right.
When in reality, a lot of these products, for the same, less, or even, maybe marginally more money, they can produce a much better product. Let's say it could be. I remember getting a computer with a hard drive failed, and the technician came out, and it was failed before the warranty. So the technician comes out and repairs it. And he said they knew it was a bad hard drive when they did it. They were just hoping it would outlast the warranty, and they only saved like, it was some tiny cost, like maybe like in the cents, or maybe just like dollars and cents on a hard drive that they would sell for like 100. So my point is that, if they were to spend an extra dollar to make it last 5 times as long, well, in our economic system, they would simply charge you 3 or 4 or 5 times as much money for that product.
Right.
Right. And in our system, that might seem fair. We might see that, oh, that sounds fair. Yeah, they actually put more work into it, and I'm getting a better deal, so it makes sense that I pay much more money. Whereas with the hour, you see that that's not an issue. If they make a better product and it lasts longer, you're going to see that, oh, it still costs the same amount of money to actually make it to begin with, right?
Yeah.
I think another thing I didn't speak about was the GDP aspect of our system. How, well, I mean, about the hour, how it affects the GDP aspect, how it changes it, right? It basically does away with it altogether.
Okay.
It uses a different system as far as what you're valuing the currency as and keeping its value. With this, the starting point would be the government infrastructure of a country.
Okay.
Right? Like, the idea of the Foundation for New World is actually go out and build a small scale city to show that this works. What you'd be doing is, as you're building the city, you're building the government infrastructure as well. The buildings, the roads, so on and so forth. That money that's paid to the people is money that stays out in the market, right? So that's where the initial money would be coming from. Now, as far as the valuation system, it's designed to value it, whereas you can't have more money on the market than what your government, excuse me, you can't have more money on the market than what your government infrastructure would cover, is worth, right? You have to tax at a rate that keeps up with the deterioration. So if the building's falling apart, it's almost to the point where it's ready to be bulldozed. It's not worth as much as it was when it was new. So you have to tax at a rate to be able to keep up with that, to either repair it or replace it after a certain amount of time. The other end of it is that, and this really helps to balance it out, and that's it's against the number of the people. How many people? It's how much money on the market divided by the number of people in the country.
Yeah.
The reason for this is you don't want a country to do things like China did, where they just built empty cities, trying to say, oh, we have more money now, right? If you just keep building and building and building and building and building for no reason, well, the amount of money per person greatly increases, and it would devalue itself. To give you an example of like how money devalues itself when you put too much out there. I mean, if everyone was a millionaire, are you going to get somebody to mow your lawn for $100, $50?
Right.
Are you going to get out of bed for less than like 10 grand? If you have $1 million in your bank, are you even going to get out of bed for like less than like so much money?
Right.
See, it kind of devalues it. You're not no longer going to have people that will be willing to work for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, money is kind of I think people have a large misunderstanding of what it actually is, even though we use it on a day-to-day basis and it keeps us alive. I think a lot of people just view it as just that, something that just keeps them alive, and they don't actually look into the science of it or the infrastructures behind it. Like you said, if everyone was millionaires, it would immediately devalue everything, and a bus ticket would cost 10 grand instead of $1. So I think the way you're approaching it is more saying, no, this system is not something that needs to be fixed. It needs something to be completely rehashed, completely taken down and restructured from the bottom up, because there is no fixing a system that is solely driven off profit.
Well, I mean, in the name of the nonprofit itself is the Foundation of a New World. Basically, what I'm stating is that the foundation of our world is our money. Our economic
Yeah.
system is the foundation and the driving force behind the decisions and what's steering the world to where it is and has been. And
Yeah.
if you want to change that, you have to start at the foundation. You can't try to just go around it. It's like if your engine was leaking oil and it needed a
Hmm.
new gasket. Instead of trying to actually take the engine apart and fix it, you're just adding oil. You
Yeah.
just add oil again and again and again, as opposed to fixing the problem. So
Yep.
literally, we have a problem, and the root cause of it is in the foundation, which is our money. So yeah, to fix that problem, we truly have to start at the foundation.
Yeah. What would you say to people that, you know, are saying like, okay, well, I hear your system. I think it can work, but what are we going to do about the oligarchs and the people that are hoarding all the money and the people that control so much real estate and so much infrastructure and, the top 1% of the 1%, because they're not going to be, they're not going to relinquish any power. So what would you say would be your way of counteracting that?
Well, let's just say, as far as if the system were in place now,
Mhm.
boom, it happens. It's in place right now today. What this would do would be to basically start bleeding them out.
Mhm.
They would no longer be able to maintain that they get more and more and more money very easily by using their real estate or using this and that and the other thing. Basically, it would start to rebalance society on that end. They would no longer be able to just blow $1 million a day and not care,
Yeah.
because they're not going to be making as much money, because honestly, they won't have an as easy a time making that money. There will still be people who are willing to pay more than, I'm not saying that everything should be exactly nonprofit, but you're not going to see that the big ticket items people are just willing to hand over, years of their life, which is what it amounts to. That's one of the
Yeah.
aspects of the hour. That's kind of the point, is that you see in a transaction that you're asking someone for years of their life. That's what you're taking. A doctor right now would say, "Oh, I'm going to save your life, but it's going to cost you $100,000." And they
Yeah.
might bring home, their bring home is however much money, and it's like, "Yay, I make a lot of money." With this, they'll see that they're taking away your life. While they're trying to
Yeah.
save your life, they're literally indebting you to someone else's servitude for so many years in their life. So they're going to have a harder time even wanting to charge that much. And
Right.
as far as the oligarchs, I mean, like I said, you have multiple aspects with the control that curbs greed by showing you the truth. Again, they're just not going to have as easy time making that money to begin with. There are some other issues with our voting practices and our election system in general
Yeah.
that has allowed them to maintain control. I could do an episode solely about this,
Yeah.
but
I'd like that.
in short, the short version would be, one, you'd have to get rid of our parties,
Yeah.
completely abolish them,
For sure.
because basically anyone that's running, if you're not a Republican or Democrat, you're pretty much not going to get elected. All
For
right, your
sure.
chances of getting elected are slim to none. And on top of that, if you are in one of these parties, well, now you're automatically indebted to a certain code of beliefs.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure exactly where the line is on how much they have to vote. Like, if you're a Democrat, you have to vote anti-gun, and if you're a Republican, you have to vote pro-gun.
Hmm.
I'm not sure where the line is exactly, but I do know there's a line that if you do not side with their beliefs to a certain point, you're not going to be eligible to be considered on that party anymore.
Yeah.
So what you have is the system where we're supposed to be voting on people as a potential governor or ruler, and we're voting for people just to be on whatever team.
Right.
Then you have the fact that, like, I believe as a senator or anyone in the House and above, you can't be found guilty of something in a court of law. It has to be by the Senate or the House.
Mm.
Well, if half the Senate or the House is already on your side, right? They're already on your team.
Yeah.
How hard is it going to be to actually convict somebody of something?
Exactly.
if you have to be found guilty through the very people that are already on your team. So you kind of want to do away with that. Another part of it is that you have some people that just vote based on that, nothing more. It could
Yeah.
be, you could have someone with an IQ of 45 on one side and an IQ of 180 on the other. Most people, when I was in college, I believe they said it was around 40%, 50%. It might be different now, I don't know. But at least that much are voting just based off of which side you're on, not
Yeah.
your intellect. No one even knows what is the intelligence score of the people who are running for office. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one metric that if I were to build a system that were be an election system, that'd be one aspect that I would want in the election system is that they have to take. I would suggest 3 different types of tests to test a person's cognitive ability and their level of intelligence, their
Yeah.
problem solving skills, their intelligence in general. I would go on basically like 3 different ones just to kind of get a better range in case some of the tests aren't that good.
Hmm.
But with that, you could see, okay, you take away the teams aspect, your parties. Now people are voting for um, people based on people.
Right.
The people who are running for office, they can run based off of whatever set of beliefs they want. They don't have to side to a certain degree with one or the others. Like if I am pro gun and pro environment and anti rich, I couldn't run for office because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a Republican or a Democrat. You kind of see where I'm going with that. You can't
Hmm.
really be too much like that. Otherwise, you're not going to have your party's favor and you're not going to be able to continue to be
Yeah.
in your party. Um, so you have that. If you had intelligence scores of the people who are running for office, that would be a contributing factor. I'm sorry, but some of the people
Yeah.
we've had in office are not smart. They'll sit there and blather to the nation, this, that, and the other thing, and they can be dumb as a box of rocks. And there's a lot of people who are going to believe them because, oh, well, they're the person in charge. They must be smart. Wouldn't have
Right.
anything to do with their money, their connections, who paid them to be there, nothing like that. No. It's because they know what's going on. Um, and that would be one of the other things I would deal with would be the ability to bribe people going into office with the campaign contributions. Right now, it's legal,
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
right? And campaigning off your own money, well, that basically means, I mean, not basically, it exactly means that you're only going to have the rich or people who are being funded by the rich or large organizations that
Hmm.
are even capable of running for these large offices. So
Exactly.
the most important ruler of the land isn't the best person for the job. It's rather the richest that want to
Yeah.
run that have the. I mean, you narrow down your choices to the people who are either the most corrupt or the ones that are bought off, the ones with the most money, so on and so forth. And even if you're not corrupt, I mean, like I said, one of the groups that will give campaign contributions is actually your political party. They will give
Yeah.
campaign contributions as well, but you have to side with their beliefs.
Mm.
So you have to, be on the team and do what the team says. So that's a number of issues there that would, again, it would drastically reform our elections, resulting in less corruption, less the rich, owning our election systems and our government.
Yeah, I think people have to be open-minded and innovative. I think we're stuck in a rut. Like I think, well, the Greeks came up with democracy almost 1,000 years ago, and we still think this is like peak government. We think it's the most, righteous peak, you know, form of human organization and way to run a civilization. But I mean, we haven't come up with anything viable since. We haven't even attempted to implement anything other than it, and not just democracy, just capitalism in general. It's it's created. If people notice it, the richest people in the world have only gotten richer, and the poorest people in the world have only gotten poorer. And that trend is not happening on accident. It's not just a natural progression. It's definitely not only conspired, it's in the system. It's literally built into the legislation that, the rich can donate to charities, get less tax breaks. They can it's built for their revenue to expand, and with the dollar going up, it's only meant for the poorest to become even poorer. And so I think implementing your system, it would be definitely a shell shock to the rich. They definitely would have to rethink the way they go about spending their money, and eventually it would balance out. What would you say to the people that will say, "Oh well, we live in a free country"? You know, there's a lot of people that say, I should be able to make as much money as I want to make. I live in America. I live in a free country. I should be able to become a billionaire if I want to, at the cost of not even concerning what it would cost other people, but they just say, it's a free country. I can do what I want. You're impeding on my freedoms by trying to limit my profit margins.
Well, with that, I would say I'm absolutely not impeding anyone's freedom. This actually doesn't impede freedom in any way. If you look over the rules,
Hmm.
like I said earlier, let's say you're the business owner, you can charge whatever you want. The only thing that you have to do is tell the truth about it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that this is making you do. And
Hmm.
like I said, the first three rules establish the pay margin, and that you have to put the cost of the product, or the actual cost before profit, next to the price. You're free to charge above that. The customer is free to tell you to go fuck yourself. The customer is
Right.
free to say, I'm not dealing with this. Actually, the eighth and final rule is the check and balance for, let's just say, if you have a number of companies that got together and they're not going to lower their prices. They're the big dogs. They don't have to answer. They don't care if you like it or not. They don't care how
Hmm.
many riots. They don't care how many marches. They don't protest. They don't care if you're outside painting their walls. They
Yeah.
don't care. They're going to do it anyway. So the eighth and final rule, um, it has to do with this, and that's let's see here. I can go ahead and read it verbatim here. Okay, rule 8. If the needs of the people are being exploited for the profit of others, it is the government's duty to promote or create a competitor through grants, loans, or other means to provide the product or service at or closer to non-profit prices. So that's the final check and balance.
Yeah.
If we are not able to do it through just not going there, not buying there, not trying to find better prices and basically telling them to, we're not going to pay your insane profit margins. If we can't fix it in that way, which that's supposed to be the idea of the free market, right? That's supposed to be the idea of the free market, is that if we are not happy, we're not going to go to you as a consumer. That's supposed to be
Hmm.
the idea of the free market. If that fails, it's the government's duty to step in and create or promote a competitor to lower the prices.
Mm.
It's the final check and balance. And honestly, with this, I am against welfare. I
Hmm.
have been on welfare. As a child, my mother was on welfare, food stamps, government housing. As an adult, I was a single father, and I had welfare as in the form of food stamps, I believe, Medicaid, to help out with that, which helped. But I am actually against welfare. It's just not a good system, and honestly, it's a weak solution to the rich exploiting the poor.
Yeah.
That's really why it's there. The only need for it comes from the rich have exploited us to the point where we cannot get by on our jobs. And I'd say the majority of people on welfare are actually working. They're
Yeah.
still on welfare. They're working a job. They'll be working 40, 50 hours a week, and they're still on welfare.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
that's the thing, is that we're working and we still can't afford it without government help. And while I'm against welfare, because in general it can too easily be exploited, it's putting money into someone else's pocket that may or may not deserve it.
Yeah.
You got people that exploit it left and right. It really doesn't do anything to help the problem of expenses. With this, I am for curbing the prices so people can take care of themselves. Charity, I believe charity should be a charity thing. It shouldn't be a government paid thing, because I don't really want my taxes raised for every charity. If I feel the need to give to charity, I can give to charity and they could help with certain things. But as far as should it be a taxable thing? I believe that taxes should be minimized as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You would be more free to decide you want to give to this charity or that charity based off of if they're a good cause and if they actually spend their money towards their cause. I think that would be much more wise.
I wonder what your opinions are about uh, the delegation of funds, because something I always think about is that we are all taxpayers. We all give our fair share to the government, and we don't have a choice. It's one of the things we have to do. Other than be born and die, we have to pay taxes. So, but it's funny. It's something we have to do, yet we don't have any choice on the delegation of where those funds go to. It's up to the government. They decide where they spend the money and how much of it. What's your opinion on how there could be more of a checks and balances in that area?
With that, I would believe again this comes down to a voting thing.
Yeah.
Voting for people that are intelligent. Another dynamic you could place in the voting aspect of it would be like an actual track record of how their budgeting and how their spending goes. Let me see here. Sorry, I had something on I had one that came through my mind and it just disappeared. It was, lost it there.
Yeah.
But as far as where they're spending their money and how, um, I would say more voting on being allowed to vote on certain issues. Like, do we want to spend money on this? Do we want to spend money on that? Asking that question, or at least giving people, even if they're not voting directly for it, kind of while they're voting, a poll to even find out if people are for this money being spent this way or not.
Yeah.
That would be a big thing. Another thing about voting system that I forgot to mention earlier, if you want a better voting system, right now they do votes every 2 years. People, basically go to vote for the president, or maybe they go to vote for somebody in, the Senate or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Or their state governor or whatever. They do all the voting at one time,
Yeah.
right? So let's just say I've been watching the presidential debates,
Hmm.
and I've informed myself on the presidential debates, and I feel confident that I'm going to vote for this guy over this guy because of XYZ. Okay, I get there and there's 13 people up there running for different offices. Not the presidency. Now you have the state person and this person and that person. I haven't even heard of this. I didn't even know this was an office. What even is this office? I don't know.
Right.
Bruce. Okay, check. I just voted for Bruce. Why? I have no idea. I
Hmm.
just voted for this person to be sheriff. I don't even know what are their duties. I don't know. Who is this person? Is he a snail? I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, you kind of see the problem there, right? We're putting
Yeah.
all this voting at the same time. I mean, it's supposed to make it easier because, oh, well, they don't have to, do votes as often.
Hmm.
Well, it makes it problematic because you have people that are voting for people just based off of, I don't know. Here, let me check box A. I
Right.
have no idea. A very simple solution to that, extremely simple, more costly though, is you hold the elections at different times.
Right.
At most, 2 different elections at the same time. Like at most.
Right.
Like maybe the presidents and the senators. If you're having local elections and it's for, the sheriff and this person and that person, hold it separately. Less people might
Yeah.
show up to vote. Okay, less people show up to vote. I'd rather the people who show up to vote are the ones who, actually try to find out who's a better person for office,
Right.
who's a better candidate. Maybe they even know what the office is. Because I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, I've gone in there to vote, and it's like I don't even know what this office is. What is this? I don't know.
Hmm.
Box A, here you go. So I mean, it's a horrible, horrible system. Like I said, easy fix is you hold the elections at different times. Is it more costly? Yeah. Is it really that much more costly? I don't know. I mean, what would it
Right.
take, especially for elections for local offices? You're probably not gonna have them people show up, so you probably just do it at the county courthouse, and you have like maybe 1 or 2 secretaries devoted to taking the votes. One
Hmm.
small room. Would it really be that costly?
Right.
Highly unlikely, honestly, if you manage it well. And again, you have to have people in office who are good at managing things like that. People who actually want to drive down the cost. And the better way to get that would be to get people in who are actually intelligent. They're good problem solvers. The last thing you want is the rich to be in there because unless they're a true self-made person, they likely, if they've been rich their whole life, they probably don't really know the concept of being frugal that well.
Right.
Of how can I do this while spending less money? They won't even care. They'll just be like, oh yeah, here, I'll tell you what, I'm going to hire this guy over here, and I'm going to give him a bunch of money and I'm going to tell him to figure out how to do this. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Right? I did my job.
Yeah.
Right? No, not okay. I'm going to hire someone to try to figure out how to make it cheaper. No, I don't need to do that. How about I try to figure out how to make it cheaper? No, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to pay this guy over here. Oh, he has a staff of 300 people. That's fine. That's fine. I'll pay all of them. That's not my
Yeah.
money. Doesn't even bother me.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think about, like, when I think about how our voting system works, it's designed for conflict. I mean, I think the current population of America is around 340 million people. We have two parties to represent all of those different opinions, different backgrounds, you know, different policies that we want to enact. And, somebody in the independent party, somebody in the Green Party, they're basically obsolete. They just get participation trophies because they're never going to make it to the end. And it's like, we know this and we still choose to do nothing about it. We still think in this black and white format of it's either red or blue, it's one or two. And we're so much more nuanced as human beings. And I think if we want more representation, we have to be willing to do the hard work. We have to be really, like, we're choosing the leader of the most powerful country in the world. I don't think this should be something that we look forward to one day out of the year to just all show up and check a box. I think, if we had 10 candidates that make it to the finale, and now instead of we go somewhere to check a box, we go there, we listen to everything everyone has to say, and we come up with the best amalgamation of all of the policies they are putting forth. And we don't vote on the who we like. We don't vote on who's the most charismatic out of the 10. We pick whichever one's willing to make the most compromise, and which one does the best job at catering to as many people as possible in terms of the legislation that we want to see, which they could obviously poll to see what people want more of. So I think we should be voting on the not only with the most IQ, we want someone intelligent. We don't want a puppet up there. We don't want a guy that's just following orders. We want someone that's understands, like you said, the essence of frugality, and understands that, you know, preferably doesn't have, millions of dollars that, they've either were born with or was handed down, or, they have no concept of, day-to-day survival. So we want someone that, I think we just need someone more like on a citizen level, not necessarily a citizen, but someone at least closer to that sphere, not someone that's been in politics their whole career and, just knows how to put on a fake smile.
No, I totally agree. That would be why, like I actually need to make a video for this one. If you go to the website, thefoundationofnewworld.com,
Mhm.
you go to the Learn More page. There's a page about the hour, right?
Mhm.
There's 3 videos on there in total. It'll take about 20 something minutes to watch it. A little longer if you have to go back and kind of listen to it again because maybe there's a lot of information and you didn't quite catch it. But anyway, about 20 something minutes worth of video. There's also a video on the justice system, right? On how to reform the justice system.
Yeah.
There's many other aspects I want to touch on, and of course the government voting system and some other aspects of government as well would be videos that I want to put on there. That way, you can really see what kind of system would be built. Like I said earlier, the foundation of New World, the purpose of it is to prove that this currency actually works. In order to do that, its goal is to build a small scale city, right? Well, that's why I would be making videos for this to explain, okay, in this small scale city, it's going to need government.
Right.
What kind of election system would they have? So, in essence, this gives you an opportunity to create an election system as well. It also gives you an opportunity to create a modified justice system. With, if you, like I said, if you go to the website, there's 3 simple rules. Short 2-minute videos, 3 2-minute videos. Very simple, easy comprehend rules that would drastically change our justice system.
Yeah.
Let me see here. There's prove me guilty or set me free, justice for the sake of justice, and policing the police. They're three extremely basic rules. What was it? Prove me guilty or set me free. That was basically limited the time they can hold you without taking you to court. Right now, you're supposed to have the right to a fair and speedy trial. I don't know how that works.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. They hold people in there for a long time. I think you have to request it. They can deny it. Maybe there's maybe if your lawyer's good enough, you get it. If you have a court-appointed plea bargain attorney, you're probably not. So basically, if you're poor, they can put you in jail and they can just leave you there until you decide to plead guilty and go home.
Yeah.
Then maybe, you'll see a court here and there where they just drag you in, don't let you speak, don't actually do anything. They just drag you back and forth to court again and again and again, week after week, month after month, year after year, until finally they decide to, you're guilty, not guilty, whatever, time served, go home.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a ploy. It's a method in order to get people to plead guilty.
Yeah.
It then becomes easier to get someone to plead guilty and go home rather than try to defend themselves and stay in jail. So the prove me guilty or set me free rule, or proposed rule, the idea is that you strictly limit the time that the police can hold someone in captivity. They're accused of a crime. Okay. Let's just say with this, if it's a misdemeanor, you have 30 days to take them to trial.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? If the defense lawyers need more time, they can request more time, and then they could keep you in jail for longer if they're trying to get more information or more of this or more of that.
Mm.
If the defense attorneys are, asking for this and this and this and this, they need some information, they need evidence, whatever. They, have to be actually given that stuff within a 24-hour time span, not, wait a month or a year to fucking give you the evidence that you're trying to use against you. If you're in for a felony, I believe it wrote it out as 90 days or 3 months, possibly 4 months. I forget how I'd written it on the thing. It's on the website, the exact wording of how I did it. But basically, again, you would have, I think, 3 to 4 months to find someone guilty or set them free. You can continue to try them. You can continue to hold court hearings or whatever with them longer than that time period. That doesn't mean that they're innocent. You could still call them back to court, and if they don't show up, you can put a warrant out for them, arrest them again. That would be a thing. But with this, you can't just hold them there forever because, honestly, if someone's not guilty of a crime, why are they in jail? If it takes you a year to find out how to prove that they're guilty, there's something wrong with that equation. If you don't have the evidence to prove that I am guilty of a crime, why am I in jail?
Yeah.
And why should I sit here if you can't prove me guilty, or you can, but you just don't feel like doing it yet? Why should I be required to sit here and wait for you to twiddle your thumbs for the next year and a half?
Exactly.
I remember reading an article, and this was in Atlanta, Georgia. This man in Atlanta, Georgia, probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't remember. He had left his baby sitting out in a car in hot summer day, right? Mm-hmm. Police were involved. Turned out the baby was in there for, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. In the car, hot summer day, windows rolled up. When I guess they looked at his computer at home, he had been Googling how long to leave a baby in a car before it will die. Horrible, horrible thing, right? They arrested him. All right, great. Year and a half later, I pick up the newspaper and I read this article about this. Well, it turns out they still hadn't found him guilty. He's still sitting in jail. And they said they were working to, I forget their words. Either they're working to try to get it done as fast as possible. I don't remember the words were diligently or whatever. Oh, we're trying to get this done as fast as possible. We're trying to, handle this court case as fast as possible. Seriously, on day one, you had this. Right. And now it's taking you a year and a half and you still haven't got it done. I mean, honestly, like the guy leaving his baby in a car, Googling how to kill a baby by leaving it in a car, that's a lot of evidence. And, I agree that person needs to be in jail, but that isn't enough evidence for them to be in jail. If you don't have enough evidence that proves that they're guilty, I mean, you got to set them free.
Right.
Period. If you can't prove they're guilty, you have no reason to be holding them. And I get,
Right.
like, maybe you need, like, some time to go gather the evidence from, like, you just saw someone murder someone, you arrest them, you throw them in jail, and you're still gathering evidence. Okay, you do need a little bit of time for that. I agree to that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fair. You might need evidence, time to try to track down the recordings and the people in there for witnesses. Okay, you need a little bit of time for that. But come on, 6 months, 8 months, a year? That's a bit much. And to ask someone to sit in jail while you take your time to prove them guilty, you're basically taking the whole concept is supposed to be that the burden of proof is on the state. You're taking that and throwing it away because now the burden of proof is on you. It's on the individual.
Yeah.
The burden of you're already been punished. I mean, what if your
Yeah.
crime was only something that they would punish you with for like 10 days in jail, but you've been sitting there for 2 months? You've already been punished.
Yeah.
You haven't been found guilty. You've already been punished. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a very simple one with that. And that took a lot longer than I thought. Like, it's only a
No, you're
2 minute
good.
video. It's only a 2 minute video. But there's two
It's
others.
important though. Yeah. It's important to point that out because there's so many facets to, rewiring and basically, you know, starting from ground zero and creating a government and a new format from scratch. It's so many assets and facets and different things that you would need to implement it. But people need to understand it's not something that's. I mean, we have a very convoluted system, a lot of very, you know, inner workings of it that are designed to, be in the favor of the rich and the powerful. And it takes time to upheave that and implement new systems. Let's say you're on the brink, you're right there, you're about to implement the city. Let's say you have the funding, you have some architects, you got some people that you're considering um, to be in office, and you're right at the brink. How are you going to go about um, finding the land or the real estate? Because I know that people have tried to do not what you've done, but people have tried to do similar things and try to you know, step away from the union and create their own, you know, city state inside of a country. And, usually the bigger country, fights back and says, well, no, we own this land. You can't do this here. You got to find somewhere else to go about it. And pretty much everywhere on earth is kind of claimed. So where would you be looking at to put this example?
Well, I mean, that with everything you said, and of course more, I've thought about extensively. And of course, the best place to do this would be in a very poor part of the world, a
Mm,
country that's already poor to begin with, that giving them some money for some land and saying, hey, look, you know, I'm going to build a city here. I need to be able to set the rules and regulations and everything as we're doing. Your country will receive X amount of dollars for the land to begin with. Your country will receive also a great increase in imports, exports,
mm,
traffic through your cities, your ports, as materials and people come through and whatnot. Also, some of your people in your poor areas will have the ability and have the option of getting housing and food and stuff like that from this. And if it works, this could also be a system that can benefit your country.
right.
One of the big things about this economic system is it's designed to provide a fair trade system, not just for me and you. That's the front half of the hour.
Mm,
I'm sorry, my example here. I did this little mock up today. I didn't
mm,
have time to get to the backside, but the backside has the rules that I was talking about with the infrastructure and the valuing of the currency itself,
mm.
and what that can do for a small country. Let's just say if it was worldwide today, small countries would have a better chance or an equal chance of actually having their currency valued
Yeah.
as worth something, not, oh, well, you're a small country, your currency is worth one one hundredth of ours.
Mm,
Basically, I can pay your people nothing and I can get everything from them.
mm,
So that right there in itself would be incentive, at least for them to even check it out, to see if it works. Because if it did work, they would benefit from it. And right now, unless you're the biggest country in the world, you're not really going to. If
mm.
you're not one of the big world players, your currency just isn't going to be as valuable, and your country is going to suffer for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it would have to be in a poor area of the world. Um, there's many reasons for this. Like a lot of people ask me why wouldn't I do this in the United States, like out in Nevada or something like that, where you can buy land and make a compound.
Hmm.
Well, with this, you're initially going to start building a city, building buildings, roads, houses. People will be able to buy the houses for the money that's being paid to them, so on and so forth. You're not going to have the ability to use that currency to buy a cell phone right away.
Right.
Right? You're basically that currency when it first begins, it's not going to be recognized. It globally, it'll be as recognizable as this piece of paper.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, it's a pretty piece of paper, but we don't recognize it as anything. Right? It will take quite a bit of time before they'd recognize anything, and especially before they actually valued it correctly. Um, because when it looks at the GDP system, it would just be on production, and that's really bad when it comes to sustainability, long term environment, all
Hmm.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the big issues. That would be why you would want to go to a poor area of the world where a nice house, regular supply of food, water,
Yeah.
sewage, all those basic commodities, or it actually be important to them, and you could actually grow at a much better rate. And in growing, as it grows, I mean, it grows. It would get more people, bigger areas, and as these people who initially just wanted food, well, now they're getting food and furniture. Okay, now the city
Yeah.
can produce furniture. Oh, well, okay, well, we got some more. Now we can produce glass. And as you begin to grow and keep adding these things into the system itself, or the city and the system is covering, or the area the system is covering, it'll eventually get to the point where, yes, you can actually get these goods within that currency. And hopefully by then, it will start being recognized and actually, or maybe I figure out a method of which to get a good trading scale out of our economic system the way it is.
Yeah. Totally. And that's why I implore people to travel and to visit different corners of the earth, because we have this mentality in America, like if you're poor, if you're in poverty, that's your fault. That's not something that's a lot of people that are affluent think, oh, well, you're doing something wrong. That's why you're not making a living, or you need to work harder, work more hours, and maybe you'll be able to afford nice things. But it's so much more nuanced than that. And it's something that's designed for you to literally give your time and exchange for a currency that can be inflated and deflated at a whim, you know. And I like how your system is very transparent in going about saying, well, this is an hour of your life. This is not a dollar. This isn't a yen. It's not a ruby. It's an hour. You know, this is what it's worth. It's right on the paper. This is what you're giving in exchange for a service or good. And I think having changing the terminology and the vocabulary behind the monetary system is important, because a lot of people think about money and they hear these words, and they're just that, they're words. They don't really have much meaning behind them. And I think just demystifying the whole monetary system and telling you exactly what it is and exactly how it's going to be used is the right way and the ethical way to go about it. um I could see a future where this could definitely work. I think most people would honestly prefer it. If you ask the average person, uh, I think they would definitely prefer that transparency and that, um, just knowing that, okay, I'm not getting screwed over on this price, or maybe I can afford this. I know it's 3 or 4 times what they said they spent to make it, but I wanted that bad, and so you'll buy it. Just I like how you said it's not impeding anybody's freedom to spend their money how they want to, but it's giving you that background information. Just like if you have like a food item or something, you got the nutrition facts on the back. They have to be transparent about the ingredients. They have to tell you, what percentage of cholesterol and trans fat is in whatever you drink or eat. We don't have that with our money. And I like how you implemented that. I think that should be implemented and replicated in other facets, like you were speaking on with politics and voting and other sectors like environment as well. And I think what you're doing is very innovative and something that I'd like to see more people, even attempt to theorize because sometimes it just seems too daunting or people just don't find the time. They're too preoccupied with their job and their career, their kids, they just want to get by. And it takes a certain individual to step back and say, okay, I know this is the wrong way to go about it. And I'm going to, yeah.
Is there any way we can pause for 1 minute?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have to use the bathroom really quick.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry about that.
You're good. I was just saying how I just like the transparency of the system, and I think it shouldn't stop at money. I just think it should that kind of level of honesty and transparency should be applied to every facet of our government and every facet of our civilization, because we can't keep lying to ourselves. We can't keep operating it this way because it's not sustainable.
Yeah, actually, there's two things to what you just said that I really wanted to state. One thing with the government, as far as transparency, the 50-year rule, as far as the freedom of information, that needs to be brought down to 20 or 10. There's no reason to keep it there that long. That just basically allows them to do what they want, and it's not going to come out till after they're dead.
Yeah,
That's basically what the 50-year rule does.
Yeah.
20-year, a 10 or 20-year rule would make it to where they will be answerable for what they do.
Right.
That would be a really big important step. Another thing with where you're talking about the transparency on food labels, and this is an argument a lot of people love to use, the free market argument, right?
Right.
Everything would be better as a free market. Well, it is a free market, but it has some controls from the government. But more or less, it's a free market. But let's just say if you want to make the argument of, oh, no, a free market will take care of everything. People just making better choices and spending their money based off of good business practices versus bad business practices are going to be better. Okay, so with that being said, you want to do away with the Food and Drug Administration.
For sure.
Right, that because the Food and Drug Administration is an infringement on the a total and 100% free market.
Yeah.
So basically, companies wouldn't have to adhere to any standards, let's say, of safety when it comes to food and drugs. They wouldn't have to do that. They could just pump out whatever they want. If it kills people, so what? Who cares? If they can't sue us in court and they can't figure out that it's us doing it or whatever, they don't know it's us doing it. There's no reason for us to change. That would be an infringement on the free market. The USDA stamp of approval on your meats, that would have to go out the window because that's an infringement on the free market. So companies would be free to sell you rotten meat, if they can get away with doing it and you don't notice it or whatever, they would do it. They would never do a recall.
Right.
Lord forbid, they would never do a recall ever. Not unless they knew that there was some way that they were going to be proven in court and they would be sued. They would never do a recall on, bad meat. What else here? Labor standards, labor laws, minimum wage.
Yeah, forget about
that's an infringement on the free market, right? Minimum wage in general, that's an infringement on the free market. What else? A 40-hour work week with anything over 40 hours being overtime, that's an infringement on the free market. So go ahead and kiss your overtime goodbye. If you are 100% free market, you want to argue for the free market, you love the free market because it's just a free market and no government control is what you want, kiss your overtime goodbye. It goes out the window. Welcome 60 to 70-hour work weeks, working sun up to sundown, straight time. Hopefully you can keep your wages somewhere around the same place they are. If you want to explore what the free market was really like, I don't know, think around 1890 and think about, miners and stuff like that. I'm sure they loved not having, government controls.
Right.
Dying of black lung, OSHA, working safety standards, that has to go.
Yep.
You want a free market, 100% free market. You want that? OSHA standards got to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that they're not bad practices when it comes to like government rules and regulations. There's not bad, regulations. No, I agree. There's bad regulations, but if you think that no regulations is the way to go, well, kiss OSHA goodbye. Surely, I'm sure most people wouldn't mind not having to wear safety glasses all day, but at the same time, they're not going to be too happy when they're watching their fellow workers and themselves get seriously injured and hurt all the time and nothing being done about it.
Right.
So those would be just a few of the things, your free market argument really doesn't solve. And to be honest, the free market idea, the hope and dream of it really only works best with like small businesses as far as competition. Right. But if any of you have ever played Monopoly, I mean, I love Monopoly as a kid. It was a great game. Eventually, the businesses, they all end up becoming one.
Yeah,
It's basically
always.
what Monopoly does. The winner of Monopoly, basically, he puts everyone else out of business in the poorhouse.
Yeah,
Um, that's essentially what business does. That somebody else gets bigger, and through either cleverness, being smart, being wise, maybe being lucky, they get bigger and they figure out how to take out their competitors until there's little to none left. Um, yeah, and that's basically what you end up with in the free market. And did the free market do anything to stop that? It does. Would having no government control stop that? No, absolutely not.
right.
Like Standard Oil, they were. I don't know. Are you familiar with Standard Oil?
Yeah, there were a bunch of companies that all conglomerated into, Standard Oil, which I think is Shell today.
No, no, no. It's the opposite.
Mm,
Standard Oil took over the entire market.
right.
They put other people out of business with every dirty tactic they could.
Mm,
If they were even legal or not, I'm thinking a lot of them probably weren't even legal what they did. Some things that were probably legal, but were just extremely dirty. Would once they got to a certain size, like they got really, really big. Let's say they had gas stations all over the state,
right.
right? You have one or two gas stations in such and such town.
Mm,
Okay, well, what they did was they would lower their prices at every gas station in that town, lower than yours, to the point where you could not sell your gas at the same price as them and stay in business.
right.
And basically, all they had to do to balance that was raise the gas prices at every other place in the state 1 penny. Right. So
Wow.
in your town, they can charge 10 cents less than what you actually even pay for it. They're actually be charging it less than what you paid for it to sell it for the sole reason of putting you out of business. Then once they put you out of business, they raise their prices back up.
Hmm.
Probably even more because now they own all the gas stations in your town. You have no choice. So you could drive like 8 hours away to another town that they don't have gas. They don't own all the gas stations. You can just pay whatever the price is. So yeah, I just really wanted to say that for anyone out there who wants to argue about the free market and how oh, the free market by itself answers everything. Like no, there's a certain level of control that needs to happen. And like I said, with the hour, it's control and it's not control.
Right.
You're free and it's controlled. And it's
Mm,
controlled in the way that the consumer can see exactly what the true cost is to begin with. That right there will
yeah.
drastically change quite a lot.
Yeah, I believe so as well. Um, what do you say to? I wonder if you put any thought into how this would implement in terms of like national security if it was implemented on a larger scale, because a lot of people that are for capitalism and for the system we have today would say, oh well, we need these large profit margins, we need to be making this much money so we can pay for defense, because as you know, our biggest budget is our defense. And a lot of people could say, well, if we start lowering profit margins, another country is going to become number one, and now we're in danger.
With that, I mean, you really kind of have to admit the truth is that we have the largest military force the world has ever seen, the most
Indeed.
expensive military force the world has ever seen. And does it really make sense that we have a military that could take on probably like a whole other continent by itself? I mean, like honestly, pick a continent and we could probably take on, except for Asia.
Yeah.
I think taking on Russia, China, and every other place in Asia would be pretty hard, even for the United States. But virtually any other continent would be, you know,
Child's play.
the
Yeah.
United States. The United States could take it on. I mean, Africa definitely. Europe would be more of a challenge. I think between all the European nations altogether would be a lot more of a challenge. But I think if you actually did the because you see these things all the time when they talk about like the spending and
Hmm.
how much spending military wise. I think they say the United States matches the next 14 people in the list.
Wow. Yeah. I'm
Like
looking.
it's something crazy like that. Like our
Yeah.
military spending is equal to the next 10 countries. That's the type of scale that we're looking at here. So to that end, I would say that we as the United States do not necessarily need to have a military that can take on half the planet to keep ourselves safe. That
Yeah.
that's basically, we do not necessarily need that. And if you absolutely feel you need to have the same amount of military as you have today, well, I don't know. How much? Look at how much money you're paying for some of the stuff that you're doing. Implement the system of the hour, and you're going to see that half the money you spend on a jet is just your profit. So I mean, you could take that or
Yep.
leave that. You would definitely get more bang for your buck with my system,
Yeah.
military wise as well as anything else. It's just you're talking about as far as the company's profit margins wouldn't really have much to do with our military directly,
Mm.
but the taxes that are paid on it would. As far as the initial argument that you had with how would they think about, oh, well, we need to make more money so we can fund the military.
Right.
So the companies themselves wouldn't directly fund it, but of course the taxes do. But even with a reduced tax revenue or not having the number one economy in the world, you could still have a sizable military force. Just you don't necessarily need, like I said, to take on half the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add on what you said, I don't think that we would. I think the reason we feel the need that we need this big military budget to protect us from half the world is because of the, you know, business practices that we do. The way we screw over other countries. And, we probably are building this, giant wall of defense because we know if anybody feels any type of way about how we're treating them, there's not much they can do about it. So I think in a world, in a society where fair practice is something that we strive for, and treating people with equity and honesty, I feel like there would be less of a need to build this giant soldier blocking the whole country.
No, I agree completely. And yeah, when it comes to a lot of parts of the world, and being here representing a nonprofit, I don't want to cross any lines, but yeah, we definitely use our military to to interact with different countries in the world, and quite often it has had a monetary reason behind it.
Yeah,
Um, even though if that's not what is said or admitted to publicly, it's pretty well known that there is a financial reason for it. Um,
yeah, yeah. I actually talked to a military colonel earlier today on my podcast, and I actually have no problem with anybody that's in the military. I more have opinions about the overarching system of it, the complex of it. But I just think that with your system, I think the biggest thing is just pushing honesty. Just you know, stop lying to ourselves. Let's all critically think about what we spend our money on and how much we sell things for and how much we buy things for. Uh, in a world ran by money, we don't think enough about it. We just kind of, if we can afford it, we'll buy it. If we can't afford it, we'll still buy it. You know, if we want it that bad. So I just think your system, along with the model of the city you're talking about, would be transformative. I think it would open people's minds because a lot of people don't believe something until they see it. It's hard for people to kind of conceptualize that reality. So I think implementing it on a smaller scale will give people kind of a model to say, okay, let's start here. Let's see how this works. And then if it works, let's make it bigger. Let's expand it. And then people can kind of better visualize because they're seeing it in action. They're seeing the dynamics of it. And yeah, I hope one day it gets implemented. And I really hope your nonprofit succeeds in its endeavors and its goals because we need it as a society.
Thank you. Yeah, and honestly, if this nonprofit is to succeed, it needs your help,
Yeah.
everyone out there. What I've went over, this nonprofit, a lot of rich people like to donate to nonprofits.
Mm,
It's usually a good tax write off, or maybe they actually care about the goals and whatnot. But
mm,
a lot of the people with the most money, if they actually look at the nonprofit and what it's trying to do, well, it's a conflict of interest for them to donate to it,
yeah.
right? This is actually trying to prevent them from easily exploiting people. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be allowed to be rich, but if you want to make a bunch of money, make it selling popcorn make it selling movies, make it selling, little things that we buy on a day-to-day, like M&Ms, the Hershey's company.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure they are plenty rich, right?
Yeah.
And I might not agree with all the business practices they've used, but I'm pretty sure that I haven't had to choose between a Hershey's bar and rent. I haven't
Right.
had to, I'm not sitting there day to day saying, oh man, I'm going to have to work till I'm 73 years old just to pay off my Hershey's bar.
Right.
Right. And that's not what's
Yeah.
going on. Oh, I'm going to have to work till I'm 70 years old so I can retire because the cost of movies are so expensive.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
right. That is not what's happening here.
Exactly.
Okay. They're using housing. They're using, our big ticket items, and they're exploiting us through this. And they're exploiting other things that are important that might be a little bit smaller, like our insurance or maybe the loans themselves. Things like this that are all adding up to us spending the bulk of our time and energy just to pay for the necessities rather than pay them off and maybe enjoy a lifestyle where we could retire by our 30s or
Yeah.
enter a state of early retirement. I mean, imagine that. Imagine if you had a home that was paid off by the time you're 30. Not just you, the average person.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Right.
work 6 months out of the year. Maybe you go on 2-month camping trips.
Right.
Maybe you do something else with your life other than just go back and forth to your job. Imagine what that does environmentally. You want to look at the
Right.
environment. What does that do environmentally? You don't have to drive your car to and from work 5-6 days a week,
Right.
again and again and again, eternally. No, after you've did it, like, 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, by the time you're 30, maybe, you've actually got yourself to a state where you just work half the year, maybe 3/4 of the year, maybe a third of the year.
Right.
Who knows? But that would be something that would change things dramatically, like
Indeed.
everything on every level. Environmentally speaking, I mean, like I said, with the rainforest, if you have people who are dependent on a logging job their entire life, they need to keep logging that forest. They're going to vote for presidents who promise to log the rainforest.
Yeah.
If you have people that don't necessarily need to work that often, they could find a job fairly easily doing something else, and they only need a job, so many months out of the year as opposed to every single day of the year. Well, you're not necessarily going to need to cut down the rainforest or cut down every tree for the rest of your life that you can possibly find.
Yeah.
Kind of see where that's going. You're no longer, and as a president, you're no longer going to need to, do things to keep these jobs going or to turn a blind eye while companies make cell phones and design them to fail, design batteries that you can't replace,
Yeah.
just update the damn things to make them stop working. I have a phone that no
Yeah.
longer connects to my car. Just one day it stopped connecting to my car. Why? I'm guessing it updated. You know, downdated. Downdated would be more of the correct terminology. They're not
Yeah.
updating. They're downdating. They're just literally, oh, you've had this phone for how long? Oh, yeah, we need to put a stop to that.
Right.
We've upped our prices on our new model. Come check it out. It does
Yeah.
everything yours did, maybe worse. Twice as
Yeah.
much money.
Yeah. I've found that just to be ridiculous. That's when I first kind of became aware of the um planned obsolescence of, you know, commodities with just the iPhone. I believe they went through a lawsuit a couple years ago because they admitted, like, yeah, we're doing this. So, and the funny thing is about the lawsuit is they didn't have to stop doing it. They just had to admit that they do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your government, not just the U.S. I'm pretty sure I remember this. I think it was more than a couple years ago, but it was in Europe that they brought the lawsuit out, if I remember correctly. Maybe they did
Mm,
one in the United States too, but I remember seeing the thing. It was in Europe where they caught them. They
yeah,
finally admitted to it, but they were caught first that they were
right.
downgrading the phones. Like instead of updating, they were downdating. So they were caught red-handed, and yeah, eventually they admitted to it. But like you said, they didn't have to do anything. Well, you know,
Yeah,
that's where the only people who could actually do something about that would be your government. And if your government's, somebody from Apple just goes to one of your congressman or your president or whatever and says, "Hey, look, if we make this phone last longer, we're not going to be able to provide you as many jobs." You'd be like, "Okay, we're not going to do anything about you making the phone fail. Just go ahead, keep doing it. Just make it legal,
right.
right? Admit that you're doing it."
Yeah,
and
right.
they'll make it legal. So I mean, that's the situation we have. So if you're hoping that you're going to vote someone in office tomorrow and it's going to change that, it's not, because you
No.
haven't removed the conflict of interest with your GDP system. I could go on. Honestly, I have a board right over here I'm staring at where I have a lot of things listed. One thing I didn't mention earlier that you might like,
Mm,
GDP credit. It's supposed to count for all the goods produced by a country, right?
mm,
It doesn't give credit to a raw material and finished product if it's sold within the same country, right? So you have a raw material, you refine, someone mines this raw material, someone else refines it to a finished product. The GDP system only works to give credit for that finished product,
right.
right? So there's a way around this. Now you work with another country.
Yeah.
So your country can do the raw material, my country can do the finished product. And guess what? GDP wise, we have increased each other's GDP.
Mm,
I mean, you have actually got a total increase of GDP. Let's just say
yeah.
if it was the final product sold for $1, but the raw material sold for 25 cents.
Mm,
If you had both the raw material and the finished product in the same country, you only get $1 GDP credit. But if they're in different countries, it's $1.25 shared between the two countries of GDP credit.
yeah.
As far as the transactions and whatnot go, it stays the same. People get the same amount of jobs, same amount of cost for the product, well, except for the shipping. But
Yeah.
that aspect stays the same. But this arbitrary GDP figure that's trying to value our currency now to please it, you've actually got a system where it encourages global shipping. How
Yeah.
many people know how much fuel a cargo ship uses?
Tons.
I looked it up. The answers I got would probably surprise you. They
Mm.
they did me. The average cargo ship uses between 33 and 66,000 gallons of fuel a day. A day. A day. Okay.
Jesus.
So imagine to counteract that 66,000. Yeah, that I guess it depends on weight and speed and so on and so forth. But even
Right.
33,000 gallons of fuel per day. How many cars would you have to take off? I mean, let's just say 30,000 cars. You'd have to
Yeah.
stop driving 30,000 cars for every cargo ship. As far as and I'm pretty sure the cargo ships are allowed to be dirtier anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you take that in mind, that they're dirtier, they don't have EPA, they're traveling in international waters. Why they need to care about EPA anything? They probably
Yeah.
don't have any kind of catalytic converter or anything to really clean up their pollution. So I mean, likely, probably more than 33,000 cars would have to be taken off the road for every one cargo ship. Now you have a GDP system that actually rewards countries for
Yeah.
shipping things back and forth. You see how it's detrimental to our world? Our economic system is
Yeah.
literally driving us to destroy our entire planet
Yeah.
for nothing.
Yeah. And I'm glad you made that connection because it's it's a web. Everything is interconnected. It's not just we gotta uh, fix the environment. We gotta stop. We gotta start walking to work. We gotta start biking to work. Like it's far more deeper than that. It's deeper than I gotta save and invest my money instead of I gotta live a little bit more frugally. Like it's sure those are noble things to do on the individual level, but we have to understand that there are greater powers that be that have a very high interest in keeping the way things are, keeping them the way that they are.
Yeah,
And yeah, we have to be proactive about how we go about changing that.
I do believe in the individual responsibility, but like when people try to use that as an argument for, like, a lot of people will say, "Oh no, we don't need to change a system. It's all individual responsibility." Well, as long as there's a company like McDonald's, as long as there's a
Yeah.
company like that, there will be people who cannot afford to survive on their paycheck. Um,
Mhm.
and with a company like McDonald's, that amounts to 90%, if not more, of the people that work for that company, right?
Wow.
As long as companies are like that, you're going to have a certain percentage of people that it doesn't matter their education, it doesn't matter if they're personally responsible. If
Nope.
everyone in the country were personally responsible, they all went to school, got straight A's on time, perfect attendance, perfect everything. They went to college, they aced everything. Everyone was perfect. Well, in order for McDonald's to exist, you have to have like 90+% of the population that works for it has to be living in an impoverished lifestyle to be able to fit the needs of their profit margins. That's just
Yeah.
as simple as it is.
Yeah, I can just speak from personal experience living in Ohio, which is actually one of the cheapest places, if not the cheapest places to live in America.
The
Even
flattest probably too.
yeah, right.
I've
Eh,
been through there. It was there was
yeah, not
thing
very
a friend of
scenic.
mine was driving like 90 or 100, and there was like the road was perfectly flat. So there was like a speed bump. Like that was
Yeah,
it. That was like it. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. It's not very scenic, over here. But being one of the cheapest places to live, even making $15 an hour, it's not enough. And our minimum wage isn't even 15. I think our minimum wage just got bumped up to $8.30 an hour. It's ridiculous. And if you told somebody in New York that they were making $8.30 an hour, they'd be like, "That's impossible. I couldn't even buy my lunch with that." So it's it doesn't even matter where you live. You could live in somewhere that's very expensive to live. It all balances out. You still can't afford to live. You can raise minimum wage as much as you want. You could even raise minimum wage to $20 an hour. The cost of things will just go up, and you'll be stuck in the same place you started. So it's just amazing to me how so many people are living like this, check to check. I'm not sure what the statistics are. I think it's close to 60% or maybe higher of people that are living check to check in America.
It sounds about right. I'd say if you did like a weekly thing or you did like a scale, you probably get people who are like within a couple weeks of being bankrupt
Yeah,
or
same thing.
homeless,
Yeah,
right? You probably have like 50-60% of people are within weeks of being, zero if they'll have nothing if they don't get a paycheck every week. Within
yeah,
weeks they'll be out being kicked out of their house. Then you probably have another 20-30% of people, maybe 40, I don't know, but that within months would be at the point where they be getting kicked out of their home. And
mm,
then you would have people that's like 6 months to a year. It'd be much smaller, but you would have
yeah,
that percentage. And yeah, the vast majority of people, within a month of not having a paycheck would be, being evicted, if not already. And
yeah,
then I'd say definitely 80% within 3 months.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's actually a statistic that I think it's um I think it's 90% of American citizens don't have $400 in an emergency fund, which is ridiculous. Like, and that's not even to condemn the people. That is just how much of what we earn we give right back. If rent is $1,000 and your paycheck every 2 weeks is $1,600, well, we didn't even buy food yet, and it's already halfway gone. It's more than halfway gone. So
Yeah.
it's this system that you've come up with. I think is something that the majority would have a vested interest in getting behind because, as we said, majority of people are living check to check or are months away from being bankrupt. So I think it's I think we have to one come to a place of unity, find something that we all can agree on. Because if we keep living in this binary way of red and blue, Democrat, Republican, we're always going to be at each other's necks, and we're never going to come to an agreement on something. And we as a nation have to say, okay, what we're doing, it's not working for the majority of us. We have to critically think about how we're going to do this, and we have to try new things and not be afraid of, the repercussions because what we're doing is not working. So we have to try something new. We literally have to.
Yeah. I think in order for what I'm doing to work, though, I'm gonna need people to help. I should like to ask all of you now, if you're listening to this, when you get a moment on your phone, on the computer, go to the website www.thefoundationofanewworld.com. That's thefoundationofanewworld.com. Um, Support it. You can share videos. You can subscribe to videos. You can like these things, all the social media stuff that will drive the impressions that will basically paying for my marketing. That's what
Mhm.
you'll be doing. If you do the subscribing and the liking and all that, and yada yada, the social media tycoons want you to do, you're basically helping to market the
Yeah.
foundation in your world. On top of that, if you could donate any amount, even like $5, what is
Yeah.
$5 going to cost you? Are you even really going to miss it?
Just a coffee.
Personally, yeah, exactly. That's not even enough to cover a fast food meal nowadays.
Yeah.
Even with the dollar menus, you can't get both a burger and a drink anymore with the dollar menus anymore. Okay, so
Right.
like $5 won't even buy your lunch. If you could spare $5 to help this, then you will be contributing to actually help see this happen. What we need is millions of people to do this,
Right.
and without it, it's not going to happen. With it, it can happen. With you actually stepping up to help, with your donations and your support of sharing on the social media and helping to spread this message, you will be helping to get this started. In the end, for this to
Sure.
happen, you'll need to just step up one more time and say you want it. That's what
Yeah.
you'll need. And Noah, if I could ask you,
Mhm.
would you be willing to donate?
For sure. Definitely.
Even $1, like $1, $5, anything, doesn't matter. Just that
Yeah, for sure.
people contribute. And like I said, it's simple. You just go to the website, you click on the PayPal donation.
Yeah. Everyone I bring on my podcast, I always support everything they do because not only did they give me their time to get on the platform, I genuinely I am behind the causes of most of the people that come on my podcast, and I want that word to get out. And to even to give people an example, like a mathematical example of how much a small donation could go a long way. Like I said before, 60% of people are living check to check. 60% of people are in that same boat. 60% of America is about 200 million people. If every one of those 200 million people were to send you $5, you know what I'm saying? We're looking at over $500 million. You know what I'm saying? Like we have that much power as a people, even though might not seem like we have that much power. As a collective, we are the most powerful. So I think we have to look at ourselves as more of a whole and stop dividing ourselves.
And think of it this way. If you give your $5 to the foundation in your world and it fails, you're out $5.
Yeah.
If it succeeds, you've gained a system that can actually change your way of life and the way of life for everyone that you have ever met, ever will meet.
Yeah.
From now on.
Yeah, right.
From now on. From the point that it succeeds on, it can make the lives of everyone that you've ever known better. An
Yeah.
easier life for your children. A more
Yes.
fair, something where you're not going to be exploited for, your entire life, living until you're so old that all you can do is go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Just to enrich the lives of those who want to take as much money from you as they can.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. That's what our life is. Most of the fruit of our labor goes towards people who just want to take it from us.
Yeah.
And we're left with the scraps of our own lives. So
Yeah.
you have a risk. You risk $5,
Yeah.
or you can risk losing $5 to possibly gain a better world. And that's all I could ask. And that's all I can say. I've gone over this every which way I can. I've explained it as much as I can. I do not see any fault in it. If you feel that there's fault in it, I would love to hear it. I cannot find any. So,
Yeah.
as best to my belief and knowledge and ability, I believe that this is the answer, and this will provide the solution, as I've explained to you.
Well, Christopher, I'm more than grateful for having you on my podcast. You've been very informative, comprehensive about it. You've answered every single question. You've had an answer for every question I've had, and I hope that shows people not only how much you're passionate about this, but how much deep thought you actually put into this, and how it it is an overarching solution. It's not a band-aid. It's not something that you know makes you forget about a problem for a certain period of time. It's an actual solution, and I believe we need more of those things in the world, more solutions. And I thank you for giving me your time again. You've been a great guest.
Thank you, Noah. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, I hope we get another chance to talk and dive down some other rabbit holes. I know we got a lot of
Well,
stuff to unpack.
if you've gone to the website, I say that my name is Christopher Ellingsworth, and I come in the name of the Lord to build the foundation of a new world, and that would be an episode all of its own. The story behind everything here.
For sure. I'll definitely look forward to that conversation, and I hope your foundation, your cause, I hope it flourishes, and I wish you the best of luck for your nonprofit and every endeavor you do from this point on.
Thank you, Noah.
Have a good day, man.
You too.
I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living.
Bottom line, there were no weapons of mass destruction.
Totally unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. I mean, of Ukraine.
A new world order. A new world order can emerge. A new era.
No, don't clap, man, because I got more info.
Hillary, our demons. Really, peace in our time.
Most people still want to run for vote.
Peace in all time.